want to thank everyone for their attendance this evening, and I do have a formality that I have to read. The City Council hereby declares a public hearing open for the matters of the fiscal year 17 operating and capital budgets, authorization for the issuance of general obligation bonds in the maximum amount of $74.3 million and stormwater utility revenue bonds in the maximum amount of $15,977,102, increase in the solid waste management fee. All that being said, we welcome each and every one of you tonight. We will have a limit of 3 minutes per speaker, and we will hold firm on that so that everyone will be treated fairly. But we'll go ahead and get started, and Madam Clerk, if you could call the first speaker, please.
Yes, Catherine Fisher.
And as Catherine comes up, ladies and gentlemen, I've been told that please do not adjust the mic because they have had some issues with it, and if we leave it alone, it should work, but unfortunately we were unable to adjust it. Catherine, we welcome you.
16. Just 16.
I can't hear you. I guess it's not working. Okay, I heard you then.
All right.
Good.
Honorable members of the City Council of Virginia Beach, I'm Catherine Fisher, Executive Director of the Old Coast Guard Station, and I stand here before you to ask you to not reduce the budgeted allocation to the museum by 25%. The allocation currently makes up 24% of the museum operating budget. As a private nonprofit organization, the museum derives the other 76% of funding from admissions, donors, fundraisers, programs, store sales, and grants. All of this combines to provide funding that keeps doors open, underwrites programming, and sustains collections. Such monies allow for the achievement of objectives and performance targets in support of the museum's mission, values, and vision. We teach, inspire, collect, preserve, and interpret. The museum is an educational resource. Last year, we interacted with over 80,000 people, Virginia Beach residents and visitors, through our exhibits and programs. Educational school programs aligning with the state standards of learning and STEM curriculum are up 150% over the previous year. The Spyglass Speaker Series, featuring regionally and nationally acclaimed authors and historians, is up 260%. The popular Shipwrecks and Ghost Lore program that shares our rich local history and folklore is up 400%. The allocation from the city supports initiatives that can move the museum in new directions. We are currently partnering with NOAA National Marine Sanctuaries to redesign our World War II Battle of the Atlantic exhibit, showcasing U-boat activity off our coast, utilizing three-dimensional video imagery. The Old Coast Guard Station exists in a complex and fluid environment that positions us amidst cultural organizations, yet also endows us with the responsibility to care for our collection. Looking at the needs of our collection, institution, and audience, we have to ask questions at every turn in order to remain relevant, vibrant, and sustainable. We need to be a driver for action, to be inclusive, not exclusive. To that end, we are in the process of digitizing our collection to make it accessible to a wider audience. The Old Coast Guard Station will be able to join the growing ranks of museums offering online access to their collection, where it will serve as a valuable resource for patrons, students, and scholars, both near and far. The Old Coast Guard Station serves the public. We preserve and protect historical artifacts and archives, helping the community to better understand and appreciate our history and culture. A decrease in our allocation will affect the museum. It may result in a reduction of museum staff or business hours, a curtailment of programming and artifact preservation, or an omission of new exhibits. Given all that we have done, all that we are doing, and all that we hope to achieve, I sincerely ask you for the restoration of the allocation that will enable the museum to continue to operate, preserving and honoring our maritime heritage and coastal history for present and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Malden.
Frank, we welcome you tonight.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, fellow council members, thank you for allowing us to come before you. I have a number of things I'd like to talk about. Catherine did such a nice, succinct job, but I've been a member of this board and was one of the founding members that began in 1979, and our first board was in 1980. So everybody can do the simple math on that. We are a living heritage of this city. We appreciate everything y'all have done. We would appreciate you remaining where you are with our allocation. It helps us greatly. I'm not going to bore you with other details. I know each and every one of you have a tough job to do. Please consider Catherine's request, and thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Next,
John Parmalee.
we welcome you tonight, sir.
Good evening, Mayor. Long time no see. Members of the City Council, City Manager, welcome. And I was going to say hi to my friend Ruth, but she's not here. I'm John Parmalee. I've lived up the road in Laurel Cove for 44 years. And I just started looking at my water bill. That's what I'm here tonight, about the water bill. Sorry, Will. Solid waste collection has gone from $0 per month to $10 per month, and we all grumbled a little bit, but we realized we could live with it. Then it went to $21.36 per month, doubled. Was there ever a public hearing on that? I don't know. And the grumbling got a little bit louder. And now it's proposed $23 a month. I have no objections to that small increase, but I do oppose the system because if you look at your city services bill, and we finally know it as the water bill, you will see that the actual cost of water is about 15% of that total bill. The drinking water, 15%. We receive this bill every other month, and as the public well knows, it creeps higher and higher due to various increases in taxes, fees, etc. And people on Social Security and veterans did not get a cost of living increase in 2016. On that bill, please note that the solid waste collection, and it says so, includes recycling. About a blue can full of materials every other week that the residents give voluntarily to TFC, who in turn picks them up in their trucks, not the city's, and sells those materials at a profit. That's what they're in business for. Why can't we, being eco-friendly, share in these profits through a reduction and not an increase in the city services bill? Imagine if we all stopped recycling and let those materials go to the landfill. All we ask is a little bit of equity for our recycling efforts. Then, in a separate bill from HRSD, we're assessed a water treatment charge based on the total gallons of water that pass through the meter. Why can't these two bills be combined into one bill, like the DMV has worked out with the city? One bill, not two. And last but not least, and I'm not totally familiar with this, but I've had people tell me that when they go on vacation, a month, 6 months, whatever, snowbirds, that they're still paying for a minimum service on water, and they're still paying for trash pickup. Now, something is dreadfully wrong when they can't work something out with Public Works. I don't have the answer, but I'm just bringing it up. Maybe there's a solution. It doesn't concern me. I don't go anymore. But there's some people out there that do. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be trying to entertain them for you.
Thank you so much for coming down tonight. Next speaker, please. I just said thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. Next speaker.
George Bryant.
We welcome you tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Sessoms, members of the council, Mr. Hanson. I'm George Bryant. I've lived in Wolf Snare Plantation for 48 years. Your claim that there's no tax increase in the proposed budget is not quite true. While the proposed tax rate is the same, assessments have increased approximately 3%, and there are increases in various fees. Most taxpayers will see an increase of 3% or more. That's better than last year when my taxes jumped 21% with the combined rate and assessment increases. I'm concerned that your appetite for increased spending comes in spite of decreasing household incomes. Per capita income in the city has dropped from about $42,000 10 years ago to about $31,000. Household income remained about flat during those years. I assume there are more people per household than 10 years ago, but the taxpayers have received few, if any, raises during that time, and new jobs pay less than the old. The federal government says there's low to no inflation. Our living costs continue to increase, especially for food, insurance, and medical. Fuel is down, but that's probably temporary. We earned less in 2015 than we did the previous year. City spending in the last 10 years has increased a whopping 62.8%, from $1.64 billion to $2.67 billion. Those figures don't include the various fee increases you have imposed, of which the solid waste and stormwater represent the largest increases. You continue to try to force light rail on us so that our discretionary income will diminish even more. Also, we can't forget the public-private partnerships you have entered into that impact the taxpayer and provide more profits for the developers. We need buses instead of light rail, and developers need to pay for their own projects. We don't need a new city hall, and city buildings should be functional but not full of expensive glass and right angles that increase the architectural fees. Basics are what we need. You have $500 million in unfunded road projects, and I'm not sure that includes the roads that need repair. I also believe you need $300 million to deal with rising sea levels. These projects should come before light rail and before public-private partnerships, which really just increase developer profits, some of which finds its way into campaign funds. And don't forget unfunded pension funds of more than $1 billion for which for the city and the schools combined. I believe you are underfunded for health care as well. Government priorities should not come before taxpayer priorities. Sacrifices need to start at the top. We don't need a new extra assistant city manager. Top city officials should not get car allowances, especially with the size of the city fleet. Stop living above our means. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Georgia Jean, and the next one is Bernice Pope.
We welcome you tonight.
Good evening, Your Honors, Mayor Sessom, Vice Mayor Jones, honorable members of the City Council, Mr. Hanson. My name is Georgia Jean, and I'm a Beach resident and a Beach teacher. I'm here tonight to make a request that I hope will have very little impact on the budget, but potentially a big payoff. I'm urging you to establish a committee, including city staff experts in tourism, historic resources, teachers, and other knowledgeable community members to consider renaming the Lessner Bridge and to set aside any needed contingency funds if you adopt one of their recommendations. The Shore Drive corridor is a key gateway for the city, and the new bridge will be a major focal point. This is a corridor where history happened. In 1585, the inlet and the two branches of the river were mapped by an exploratory party from the Roanoke colony. The Jamestown colonists landed, Adam Thorogood established his plantation, and in 1781, a French fleet ensured there would be an independent United States. That fleet under Admiral de Grasse came to the Chesapeake and anchored in Lynn Haven Bay. And it was from the Caribbean. They took a long, dangerous route to avoid British spy ships. They fought the Battle of the Capes badly undermanned. 1,900 sailors and 90 officers were ashore along Shore Drive replenishing their water. Few residents know that Washington and Rochambeau came to the colonial-era Lynn Haven Bay. That's just outside the inlet. You can see this on a map that's at the Library of Congress from Rochambeau's collection. And they met and finalized their strategic plans that led to the victory at Yorktown. The new bridge offers an opportunity to create a new place name that relates this history to the greatest possible advantage. And it's too big an opportunity to waste. You're a council that not only deals with the present, you look to the future. Few residents know about this. I can tell you, we teach George Washington as an SOL at 3 grade levels. No teacher in the city talked about this. And that's the value of a place name, whatever you pick, is that it makes history visible and remembered. De Grasse took extraordinary risk and went far beyond his charge to ensure that we had our liberty. And I think that it is too big an opportunity to waste, and we need to consider it because it's an opportunity for the future. In 1981, we celebrated the bicentennial at Yorktown. Very little happened here in Virginia Beach. The new bridge will last 100 years. I ask that you include tourism because it can look ahead to the 250th in 10 years, to the 300th tricentennial in 2076, and that we plan for that. Thank you.
Coming down. Next speaker, please.
Bernice Pope, and then Mac Rawls.
Bernice, we welcome you.
Good evening, Mayor Sessoms and ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. I am Bernice Pope, Chair of your Historic Preservation Commission. On behalf of the Commission, I would like to thank the Council for support you have provided for historic preservation initiatives and programs. I'm here this evening to bring to your attention the proposed FY17 operating budget. Has very little support for historic preservation. The proposed budget funds only a part-time position and has $0 for programs and other activities. As presented, the FY17 budget will significantly impair the ability of staff and the Commission to maintain current programs, to respond to emerging issues, and to address requirements of a certified local government program for which City has recently applied. The CLG program promotes community-wide preservation, recognizes and supports local preservation activities, and establishes the credentials of quality for local preservation programs. I'm excited to be able to tell you, to report to you that just this week we have been informed that the Virginia Department of Historic Resources has approved Virginia Beach's application for designation as a CLG community. Although exciting and the achievement heightens our concern about the proposed FY17 budget. In FY15, there was a full-time position and $42,000 in non-personal funding for historic preservation. With a transition from museums to the planning department in FY16, the budget was reduced to a 0.5 FTE position and $6,000 in non-personal funding, and an additional $19,000 carried forward from FY15 to help meet program needs during the current year. I'm here to request that Council add $42,000 to the FY17 budget for preservation programs and initiatives. This funding will allow us to maintain existing programs, help to bring required historic resources, surveys up to date, address CLG program requirements, print an updated and enhanced booklet of significant historic buildings and structures, and continue to identify potential historic districts in the city. The Commission also requests that the part-time historic preservation planner position to be expanded from 0.5 FTE to 0.8 FTE. This will provide the support needed for those important historic preservation programs in the coming year. In addition, the Commission is concerned by the proposed funding reductions to historic sites that are open to the public. The proposed 25% reduction for Old Coast Guard Station and the Atlantic Waterfowl Museum is 5 times greater than the 5% reductions that departments were asked to submit. We are requesting that their funding be restored to the FY16 levels. Finally, we are concerned about the proposed operational reductions for historic houses. These historic sites are an important avenue for citizens and visitors to learn about our history and to develop appreciation for our city's historic resources. The reduction from 6 days per week to 3 days per week is very disturbing, and we ask Council to have city staff develop a better operational plan for FY17 that keeps resources open and available for visitation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mac Rawls, and then Al Henley. Mac Rawls. Al Henley. And then Dane Blythe.
Al, we welcome you tonight.
Sessoms, Vice Mayor Jones, ladies and gentlemen of City Council, Mr. Hanson, good evening. My name is Al Henley, and I'm a lifelong resident of City, Virginia Beach. I come before you tonight to represent the Atlantic Waterfowl Museum located in the historic DeWitt Cottage fronting the boardwalk at 1113 Atlantic Avenue. We pride ourselves in a system that works and adds value to our city. We have been recognized as a unique cultural asset and have been placed on the Historical Register of the city, the state, and the National Register of Historical Places. Unlike the city-owned historical houses, we have no paid city staff. Our 2 paid staff members are paid by money we raise through fundraising, gift shop sales, donations, and a lump sum payment by the City of Virginia Beach. We are located on the boardwalk, and in 2015, we had 22,248 visitors through our doors, which has been more than double in 5 years. Our volunteers total 4,770 hours who provide information, decor carving classes, monthly meeting with guest speakers, and providing disabled veterans carving classes. We are now a nonprofit organization who provides as a unique cultural experience for locals and visitors who vacation in our lovely city. The city is proposing a $13,000 cut from our current budget, and if approved, we will be unable to provide the same level of service and possibly lose 1 paid staff member. The museum needs to remain open on the boardwalk. It is a jewel of the only surviving cottage on the ocean front. The past March, we had more visitors than the previous March, proving that the off-season is just as important as the full season. We are planning additional fundraising events in 2016 to help support our mission. In the past, we have charged admission. However, visitors decreased dramatically. We have provided a donation box for visitors and collected $2,783 in 2015. We're open 7 days a week from Memorial Day to September and from October to Memorial Day. As you can see, as a nonprofit organization with no paid city staff, we need to remain open for the public's benefit so they will continue a unique cultural experience. Thank you for your dedication to the city, and hopefully to consider for the support in the future of this coming year. We have a number of supporters here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and without them individually speaking and taking up your valuable time, they've elected me. And if they would please rise and be recognized.
We thank you for your comments. We're delighted to have you all here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Al. Your next speaker, please.
Dane Blythe and Shannon Hurley.
You did that perfect. We welcome you tonight, Dan.
I live in the Bayside area of Virginia Beach. According to the Tax Foundation, Americans will collectively spend more on taxes in 2016 than they will on food, clothing, and housing combined. Many beach families, as you know, are living paycheck to paycheck. For most of us in the private sector, pay raises have been anemic, in some cases non-existent for years. More and more of our hard-earned paychecks are being taken by government at all levels. Even some parts of the city that are supposedly prospering are actually struggling. I looked the other night at the Westin at the recent assessments, and it was surprising to see. In fact, an example was that a unit on the 16th floor that in 2007 sold for $391,000 today is assessed at $211,400. It's a 46% decrease, and unfortunately, there are a lot of other examples like it in that area. Recently, in the Wall Street Journal, Peggy Noonan, who was a speechwriter for President Reagan, wrote a column with the subtitle, "Why Political Professionals Are Struggling to Make Sense of the World They Created." Here are a few quotes from that. "There are the protected and the unprotected. The protected make public policy. The unprotected live in it. The protected are the accomplished, the secure, the successful, those who have power or access to it. They are protected from much of the roughness of the world. More to the point, they are protected from the world they have created. In wise governments, the top is attentive to the realities of the lives of normal people and careful about their anxieties. That's more or less how America used to be. There didn't seem to be so much distance between the top and the bottom. Now it seems the attitude of the top half is, you're on your own, get with the program." It sounds like Ms. Noonan just visited Virginia Beach. So I'm asking if you could consider just a few changes to the budget that could go a long way to relieving families' financial anxiety in our city. First, the City Council can help Virginia Beach citizens by approving a revenue-neutral real estate tax rate of 96.7 cents instead of the recommended increase of 2.3 cents. Surely you can find savings of 0.6% to help families struggling to balance their budgets. 2, you can help us by not giving away tens of millions of dollars to favored developers. And finally, you can join Councilman Moss and Dyer and stop spending our transportation money on light rail. Please support Councilman Moss on his proposal to focus these funds on the backlog of road projects that we have and an experimental no-fee bus service. And I thank you for your consideration.
Please.
Ann Hurley, and then Leslie Blusting.
We welcome you tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Sessoms, City Council members, Mr. Hanson. I love living in Virginia Beach, and what makes this city a great place to live? It's the amenities, and one of these amenities is a great library system. A library is more than just the books found on the shelves. In the past year alone, I've checked out an electronic book while on vacation in Tennessee, downloaded an audio book to read or to listen to while I was in Massachusetts, reserved movies to watch upon my return while in D.C., checked out CDs to listen to in the car, browsed magazines and newspapers, perused the community notice board to find out about local events. When I visited, I've seen the terminals which give access to the internet to those who don't have such access at home. And I've used those terminals in the past when power has gone out at our house. I've helped my daughter register to vote at the library, and I participated in events sponsored there. However, first and foremost, a library is about books. Browsing for something to read while going through titles on a screen is like deciding which car to buy based on pictures. E-books definitely have a place, but nothing can replace the tactile feel of turning pages. Books are always available, not dependent on signals and battery power. A library is a truly democratic institution. Whether a person needs help to find a job or to plan an exotic trip, he can use the library. A frazzled mother with a toddler, a student needing a safe and quiet place to study, an adult looking for a book he can read in the few chunks of time available, a retiree enjoying an afternoon out, all can be found in the library. Where else can people drop by for a few minutes or linger for hours without spending a dime, without incurring disapproving looks? From the single dad who wants to give his child the opportunity he's never had, to the thrifty who refused to pay $20 or more for a book that will only be read once, the library serves everyone. Cutting almost $550,000 from our library will set it on a course from which it may never recover. Why target an institution which benefits everyone in the city? The library's impact on the city's quality of life is immeasurable. Our library system is many things to many people. By cutting its funds, you will make it less so. Funds spent on the library directly benefit all Virginia Beach residents, not just some. This can be said of only a few items in the budget. Please support our library system. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Leslie Blunstein and Jada Copeland.
We welcome you tonight.
Hello, my name is Leslie Bluestein, and I'm a student attending Ocean Lakes High School. I have lived in Virginia Beach for over a decade now, and the public library has always been an important part of my life. I've spent many hours there researching and studying. I've attended library-sponsored programs that have taught me about many things, from fashion to technology to finance. I've also volunteered there as part of the teen advisory group, making friends and planning programs. I've helped with the summer reading program, signing kids up to encourage them to keep reading over the summer and rewarding them when they do so. The library needs funding in order to provide the community with these types of programs. Without the library, I would not have had access to the worlds I discovered through the books I found there. I would not have discovered the joys of new genres of writing. I would not have learned about different styles of music. I certainly would have been much poorer, being forced to buy the books that I've been able to borrow for free. Being able to borrow books, I've been much more likely to explore new ideas, new genres, and new styles, because if I don't like them, then I'm not out of anything. Cutting the library's budget by $500,000 will prevent it from acquiring as many new materials, keeping future students from the opportunities that I have had. Please support the future of the students of Virginia Beach. Please support our libraries. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Jada Copeland and Clonice Platt.
We welcome you tonight.
Hello, my name is Jada Copeland. I am a junior enrolled in Bayside's Health Sciences Academy and a member of the Virginia Beach Library Board. But tonight I'm not here as a board member, I am a student. 56 elementary schools, 14 middle schools, 11 high schools, and 4 secondary specialty centers. Together this makes more than 65,000 students. This is the future generation. This is my generation. We learn each and every day from our parents, teachers, peers, and a plethora of resources. Most of these materials, including books and computers, are very costly, therefore causing several students to not have access to them. Several may not know, but some of our own city students suffer from poverty, homelessness, and several other tragic situations. The library has provided wonders for them as well as the rest of the students here. Even though some of my peers portray the idea that the library is insignificant, in actuality, this is one of the most predominantly used facilities by students and has truly been a blessing in my life. The public library is what has enabled the city students to be more successful because we are now afforded the same opportunities as the rest of this great state, no matter our parents' financial situation. Without these resources, it is impossible for this generation to prosper. If made official, the new budget for public libraries will take these materials away from us because the library books and materials budget will have to be reduced by $88,610, and instructional supplies will have to be reduced by $19,000. Therefore, fewer materials will be able to aid and educate us. The generations before us argue that us students need to take on a more fundamental and proactive role in our education. But how can we do so if you take away the very thing that allows us to do so? Our knowledge depends on what we have, because without this aid, our education is prohibited and nearly impossible. On behalf of every student in Virginia Beach, I ask that you not reduce the budget for the public library in order to ensure the welfare of your children and their children as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Next speaker, please.
Clinice Platt, and then Dr. Rick Kloberg.
We welcome you tonight, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Clinice Platt. I'm a Virginia Beach citizen and a member of the Virginia Beach Public Library Board. I'm here today to ask you to reconsider the 4.37% funding reduction currently proposed by Council for the Virginia Beach Public Libraries. Libraries are a keeper of the spring for our communities in many respects. If you remember the story of the keeper of the spring, his job was downsized because he did his job so well with quiet efficiency, so that the magnitude of his service and importance was not realized until the town began to suffer an economic downturn due to a lack of tourists. The Virginia Beach Public Libraries have been doing their job with quiet efficiency as well, as they have worked to fulfill their mission of lifelong learning, despite the cuts for the past 7 years. If you walk into any library on any given day, you will see firsthand why the city provides this service to our citizens. You will see a mom and dad reading with their children, a retiree reading the newspaper or a magazine, several individuals from different walks of life sitting side by side at computers, free library programs and classes being conducted, meeting rooms with students working on projects, teachers designing new ideas, community leaders strategizing and conducting workshops and business, different clubs meeting for their weekly meetings, and customers engaged in a game of chess, art by local artists displayed in different spaces, people lined up outside to purchase from one of our local farmers, and librarians working with customers, the young and the old, the haves and the have-nots. A true expression of the diversity of our city is on display when you visit our local libraries. I'm asking you today to not cut the Virginia Beach Public Library funding so that we can continue to be a keeper of the spring for our city and our citizens by lessening the digital divide for those who don't have access to the materials and computers provided at the library, by maintaining a sufficient number of copies of books for students, by maintaining topical diversity in the library's collections, providing citizens with the materials that they need without longer waiting periods, by not having to decrease the number of items available to our customers, providing necessary training and professional development to our staff to meet the ever-growing needs of our citizens, and to be proactive and strategic about planning for the future needs of our customers. You can help us by not cutting our funding so that we can be that keeper of the springs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Dr. Rick Kloberger, and Dr. Mike Summers.
We welcome you tonight, sir.
Mayor Sessoms, Mr. Jones, members of City Council, and Mr. Hanson. I am Rick Klobuchar. I am the president of the Friends of the Virginia Beach Historic Houses. We are a 501c3 organization of about 100+ members in the city, and very proud, Mrs. Wilson and Mr. Jones, that you are members of our Friends organizations. The Friends traces its origins back to the mid-'80s, over 30 years ago, with the city buying Francis Land House and then making it be available. So we've been around a while. Our 100+ members are very passionate about the historic houses. We are all volunteers, and recently have ourselves established a digital library or digital archive of documents and photographs of the early times of the houses. When I took over my tenure as president of the Friends of the Historic Houses, we were asked by Travis Halstead, who's the manager of the houses, to come up with a list of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to the houses. I will say that the number one threat that we talked about was that the city would lose interest in the houses, and that could well be manifested in budget cuts all along the way. So that was a threat that we had. But what I like to do is talk about what I think are the opportunities here, as well, and maybe perhaps some of the weaknesses. So we believe there are wonderful opportunities to be able to promote the economic nature of our region. We are, in fact, the first landing here. The city of Virginia Beach's crest has that very nature with the first landing on it. We are truly a unique effort in that regard. So when we wrote our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, several of the weaknesses that we addressed were the fact that the city really needs to rely more on volunteers with the houses. The houses became good and were promoted very well for a number of years, running off of the volunteers. That has changed, and it has become much more difficult for our members to become volunteers. The second one that we talked about was that the city should perhaps reach out to organizations like ours, the Friends, the Council of Garden Clubs, the Beautification Commission, Master Gardeners, Lighthouse folks, Ferry Plantation Organization, to collaborate and promote the historic nature of our region. In other words, pull that together, and we would consider within the Friends spearheading the establishment of a council of historic organizations to serve much like the Council of Garden Clubs within the city, to shepherd and take care of the houses and become friends to them, plus all of the historic organizations in our region which are suffering at this point. But for us to do that, we believe that we need a champion. And we believe that that champion should be the City Council, or certainly members of City Council. I don't think anybody in my organization has much of a stomach for leading something like that, but what we know, we had the support of organizations like the City Council to be able to do that and do that correctly.
That was time, Your Honor.
Okay.
Coming down tonight. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Dr. Mike Summers and Bob Gilson.
Mike, we welcome you tonight, sir.
Thank you. I stand before you this evening as the current chairperson of the Virginia Beach City Public Library Board. I've been fortunate to serve on this board since May of 2010, and I've served as chair since September of 2014. I'm here to share brief comments about the library and its current position relative to the city budget process, and I want to do this by making 3 points. Point number 1, the Virginia Beach 2040 report identified 6 critical elements that must be achieved to move us closer to the vision for our city in 2040. One of these elements is a learning community. The report states that we believe in and support an educational continuum that begins at birth and lasts a lifetime. The mission of the Virginia Beach Public Library is a library for a lifetime. I would submit that the library has a critical role in enabling the city to reach its vision in 2040 40, by continuing to provide programming that ranges from early literacy activities to summer reading challenges to workforce development services to computer and technology classes for all citizens. Point number 2, the City of Virginia Beach Comprehensive Plan policy document states that we want the Virginia Beach to be a city whose public services and facilities work to satisfy the needs of our citizens. Our roads, schools, parks, libraries, emergency responders, drainage systems, and social support systems must function adequately and efficiently. The vision of the Virginia Beach Public Library is that it brings people together and provides equitable and convenient access to resources, educational experiences, and opportunities to enrich lives. I'm proud to say that we have more than 320,000 registered library card holders, of which more than 250,000 of them are city residents. And they made more than 1.8 million visits to our facilities. And through successive years of budget cuts that have impacted the staffing and collection itself, the library continues to serve its citizens in an efficient manner. But there is a limit to this. And finally, point number 3. A recent community needs assessment survey conducted by Continental Research found that nearly 68% of Virginia Beach households visited the library. And of those who did, they averaged 14.5 times during the year. Yes, the library touches lots of people in our wonderful city. The library has a direct impact on the quality of life in Virginia Beach. It supports our youngest citizens, the kids in our world-class school district. Our college students, parents, workers, and retirees all benefit from its services. And given the library's connection to the success of virtually all of the strategic initiatives adopted by the city, it troubles me that the library budget faces the second highest proposed percentage reduction. I respectfully urge city staff and council to carefully consider the tremendous impact the library has. I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Bob Gilson and Pedro Gonzalez.
We welcome you tonight, sir. You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. City Manager. 5 years ago, my wife said to me, you work too hard, you ought to do something completely different. And so 5 years ago, I started volunteering at the library. And as a volunteer at the library, I got a chance to meet some really interesting people, and that is the people that work for you. For the last 42 years, I've been involved in federal government work, either as an employee or as a consultant, representing agencies. And so I know a little bit about morale, and I know a little bit about staff and the staff's needs in an organization. The libraries have been cut for the last 7 years. The library's staff has been cut 55 positions from 300 down to the 250s. That has what's the right word? It has an absolutely predictable effect upon morale. And that is that young people will go to the places that are going to prosper and not come to us where we're in a cutting atmosphere. And so as I got to know the library staff, and I've met quite a few of them, I found them to be tremendously dedicated and really hardworking. But I also think that hanging over them is this threat of, is my job going to be here next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And if a good job in Chesapeake comes up and Chesapeake isn't cutting, and I'm just using that as an example, maybe I'll go there and not stay in Virginia Beach. So I'm here today to just talk about that a little bit. I think the library staff that I've seen is a great face for this city to present to the people of the city. I usually do my volunteer work, and I usually put in 6 to 8 hours a week. And I do it on Friday mornings. And this time of year, back to February, there are literally hundreds of people lined up at 8 o'clock every morning to get into the library at 10 to get their taxes done by library people. These are not folks that can afford H&R Block. These are folks who are there because they can't. I've also seen a lot of disabled folks in that line.
And our library provides a service to them that is invaluable to them. Very, very important. Probably not big taxpayers. Probably not big taxpayers. But they need our help. I believe that the cuts that are coming about affect morale. They affect the ability to deliver services. I think our folks do a good job. Let's keep them doing that good job. We make money. The Friends of the Library, as you probably know, provides $150-some thousand a year to the library for reading programs and other special events. $1 million over the last 10 years. But what we see is all that hard work that we're doing, if the libraries keep getting cut, then what's our work for? So that it can go on? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Peter Gonzalez, and then Jessica Abbott.
We welcome you tonight, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager Hanson. My name is Pete Gonzalez. I'm a lifelong resident of Virginia Beach. I currently live in Blackwater. I'm also a paramedic, career paramedic with the City of Virginia Beach. I was a volunteer medic for 7 years previous to that. I'm here tonight to, number one, thank you for your generous support over the years. I know that recruitment and retention in our department is top of most of y'all's lists, if not all of you. I would like to draw your attention to something in the budget where we have requested, but it's been unfunded for 15 new positions in our department. 5 of those positions are to help staff the Creed Station or the county station. As most of you probably know, about 12 years ago, the fire department agreed to provide us a driver for an ambulance whenever we had to transport a patient to a hospital. Since then, their circumstances have changed. We no longer have that guarantee of a driver. So right now, it's pretty much, we're kind of winging it. So we really need at least those 5. The other 10 are to help augment the great volunteer staff that we have. They're doing a great job. A lot of those people are giving up hundreds and thousands of hours of their personal time. However, since we started with career staff in 2004, we have not increased our career staff, not one body. We've actually lost. We started out with 8 per shift, now we're down to 7. So I know you guys, money's tight. I know you guys are doing a great job, and you really supported us in the past. I just would ask that as you move forward, especially at the reconciliation phase, that you try to look around and see if you can maybe squeeze out some more money and help us just a little bit. Thank you.
Jessica Abbott, and then Diana Howard.
We welcome you tonight.
My name's Jessica Abbott. My husband, who had to step out with a crying baby, sorry. He's not a fan of government, so. My husband's a 3rd grade teacher at SeaTac Elementary School, and I've been running my family's business locally for the last 10 years. Unexpected expenses are like gum on your shoe. You eventually have to stop, sit down, and get rid of it. Rarely does one buy a new pair of shoes. Unlike our city government, families always find a way to make their shoes just last a little bit longer, and we hold off on purchasing the latest and greatest. We work with what we have, and we live within our means. It's well beyond time that City Council learn the same lesson and restrain themselves, just like my family and other families have had to do. We've had to cut our personal spending past 1% of our income more than once before, and the fact that any one of you would rather take more money from families than exercise that same restraint should disqualify you from being one of our employees. Lower income and middle income families should not have to sacrifice their standards of living any further than just to feed your insatiable need to spend money that is a not necessity to maintaining a functional city budget. The fact that the City Council In fact, City Council can still improve the core services provided with a revenue-neutral real estate tax. So an inquiring mind begs the question, why did the city manager state multiple times that there would be no real estate tax increase in his executive summary for his proposed tax budget for next year? Why should the average citizen place any meaningful level of trust in a government that regularly operates behind smoke and mirrors, disingenuous claims, and lacks self-reflection in failing to realize that there are many beach families struggling to continue to make meets ends? Should we really be buying new shoes, or should we just be getting rid of the gum? Thank you.
for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Diana Howard and Bill Grimbrell.
Diana, we welcome you. Good, thank you.
Okay, one of the things that we're all concerned about is the growth of government, right? And I cut and pasted these from your budget. The city manager is recommending that we hire a new deputy city manager with an executive assistant. And I wonder why. When you applied for the job, did you not know that you had to take care of public safety departments? And if that was too much for you, that I don't understand why you need a deputy city manager. You shouldn't have took the job. You said here it's to assist council on executing the overall goals and mission of the city. Sounds to me like the staff already does that, so I don't see the need for that. Some other positions I don't agree with is light rail. There's 5 positions for light rail and a light rail office. There's over 200 additional employees. I know some of them are mandated, I'm told, for teachers. Some are sorely needed in public safety, but I'm sure that there are some there that just not needed, like the deputy city manager and another executive assistant. Also, the money for light rail extension. It says here you appropriated to date $17.5 million, and in this budget you have another $20 million. Right? The multimodal transportation special revenue fund is $33.5 million. Our reserve for contingencies is over a 300% increase. It's now over $13 million. It used to be only $2.5 million. The city manager's budget office was, in 2015, only $2.5 million. With this increase, it's going to be over $4 million. We have buses for transit. Now, I know I asked Mr. Davenport about this. Why don't we expand buses now? And you know what he told me? He says there was no demand. If there's no demand for buses now, why will there be demand for it later? And I guess that's, they think it's going to happen because of the light rail. Now, right here you had in there, from 1980 to 2014, transportation-related percentage of people who drove alone in 1980 was 67.5% and is now 82.9%. Persons who carpool, it was 21.2%, it is now 8%. People who use public transit, it was 1.7%, it is now 8.8%, less than a percent. Persons who work from home, 2.1%, now 3.2%. So why do we need light rail? Don't see it. I also wanted to tell you about all the money you're taking out of me for it.
Thank you very much for coming down. Bill, we welcome you.
Hear me right? Yeah. So my name is Bill Gambrell. You met me probably a couple times before. I come to today as the president of a restaurant that's in a historic property, and as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, and as a past president for the old Coast Guard station. And the first thing I wanted to do is thank you all for doing all the work you do. I know you've got hard decisions, and I think it's great that all these people come and share their thoughts for you. But I know that you trust that you'll make great decisions in the future. I came also to tell you that I think that it's important to invest in your past. It'll be your future. And the cuts that are proposed for the historic properties, the old Coast Guard station in particular, and Mr. Henley's DeWitt Cottage and the historic homes are all valuable assets of the city that need a hard look because, unfortunately, you know, they're neglected by most people, and most people really love them when they find them. So my request would be that you be careful about the decisions you make about the historic preservation decisions in your budget, and hope that you will do that for us. Thanks.
For coming down. Next speaker, please.
That's all the speakers, Your Honor.
Well, we want to thank everyone for their attendance tonight. Great comments. The meeting has gone very well, and at this time, we will adjourn.